get ready for something explosive. This is where the money is. It's all about brand integration and sponsorship in streaming. Where are we going with it? And I've got a great panel that includes the likes of John Petrocelli here with Bulldog DM. Give it up for John. The new kid on the block who's wearing a Tigers sweatshirt is Adam Gouttierre from Hudl. We've got Scott Davis, former Microsoftie, now with GlobalLogic as a CTO. He's on the end there with his very astute tablet, which we almost sold. And Dylan Conroy, last but not least, local hero, who's doing God's work for NextTrip and JOURNY. I'm Chris Pfaff from Chris Pfaff Tech Media, LLC. You've seen me around this week. But we're going to really jump in quickly to talk about where things are and where the money is, and that's live. And John, I'm going to ask you to start this off. How do you engage audiences in ways that really enhance the sponsor investment? Because you guys do a ton in live, and I know recently you did something with Doja Cat, I think last week, right?
Right. And I've been in this space for 13 years, and my clear philosophy on this is really the success for brands is transforming the viewer into a participant. And after hundreds, maybe thousands of shows, that's what kind of triggers the most success for a brand. And I'm talking things, integrating things like curated chat, polling trivia, graphics, calls to action, and unlocking watch time. And what happens in those experiences, the audience will invite their friends to come along and kind of journey with them. There's also a greater likelihood for them to return. But the key driver we found in working with brands like Coca-Cola, AT&T, Jeep, Nissan, Hyundai is unlocking that watch time, right? They're struggling for the consumer human attention span is now down to about 8 seconds. And if we do our job properly in a live stream, we'll see watch time of 6, 8, 12, 18, 20 plus seconds, so minutes. So that's been the real.
And talk about the engagements that you're building for them. I mean, is this on the creative level as well as what you're bringing in terms of, say, multi-platform streaming? Talk more in detail.
We just did the BET Awards pre-show for BET with McDonald's. So in that experience, we provided overlays. You could answer a question. It was the McCrispy strips that McDonald's was pushing around the NBA Finals, and the audience could participate and answer questions if they had tried it. We also integrated the brand into a live ticker. We could pull comments from the YouTube chat and integrate that into the broadcast. So that really took it from a kind of a passive viewing experience to a completely engaged experience. And we've done similar.
And what was it? Talk about the success on that side, particularly from the client. I mean, you're working, very, very much hand in hand with these clients to extend their brands in ways that they might not have, really explored before. So, how are you bringing in the brand and whatever their exact sponsorship is, because then they get into the nasty ROI conversation.
Yeah, certainly beyond, what people don't want to do is kind of slap their logo into a broadcast. So by turning on those interactive tools, we're getting to the holy grail for the advertiser, which really is watch time, right? And I think in that case, or certain cases we've done for brands like Coca-Cola, we've been able to give them 29-minute average watch time on mobile and almost 113 minutes on desktop, based on the content and based on the experience. But turning those interactive capabilities and integrating them into a live stream is what's really been successful with advertisers.
Right, and Dylan, you've got some really interesting metrics in terms of watch time for what you guys are doing, and talk about that and how it's evolved.
Yeah, well, our average watch time on the JOURNY TV Fast channel is 29 minutes, which is definitely over the mean. I think one of the reasons we believe that that's true is because our sponsor ecosystem is very much an endemic sponsor ecosystem. So people stick around for the ad breaks because they're seeing maybe a segment right before that featured the property that they're about to maybe consider going and vacationing at, or maybe they're seeing a cruise line integration with a dining experience. So the advertising experience is very native. Even in the ad set, it's generally brought in through sponsors that have done some type of integration into the content itself at some point. So I think that, everybody talks about native advertising, whether it's in the context of watching it in an article or now seeing it in a video channel. If your sponsor ecosystem is adding value to the viewer experience, you're probably going to see longer tune-in times, even on a channel like a fast channel.
Yeah, and Scott, talk about the innovation side here. I mean, what are we seeing in terms of either, is it multi-view? Are there new pieces of the innovation sort of cycle that are coming into branded streaming?
Oh, absolutely. We've turned brands from like a static thing you do at the beginning of the
Use
season.
that thing called a mic there.
I have a mic.
Oh, you've been laved.
I've been
Oh,
laved.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what happens when you show up early.
There you go. All right. So,
Oh.
yeah.
We've turned sports and retail from a static world into a software problem. You don't have that old world problem where you sell everything at the beginning of the season or early on. You can change things based on a goal, an event, a pause, even a change in the weather nowadays. We can do all this change in the cloud. And these functions continue to grow and evolve quickly, especially as we bring AI understanding of who the audience is and who the sponsor wants to hit. We can change things. Think about something like NHL hockey. They can change the ads that are appearing on the ice or on the boards based if you're a home or an away fan. It's incredible.
That's a really good point. The NHL doesn't get enough credit, frankly, for the on-screen innovation, particularly coming out of the strikes from like 21 years ago. It's amazing.
It's incredible. And they're not the only ones doing this. You take a look at what people are doing with archive sports. There are old logos inside of some people's archived content. Those vendors don't exist anymore. They're pulling those archives out, they're swapping out those logos, and they're putting new logos in, and people are paying for that stuff, man. It's incredible. Sponsors are going back like, I didn't exist then, I do now. I want my logo there. It's amazing what people are doing. It's a software problem, and it's really letting sponsors get into sports that they didn't exist in beforehand.
And I mean, how are you getting into that? Are you selling that or?
Well, we're the engineering backbone for a lot of this stuff, right?
But
so
you might find a little niche somewhere there.
Well, we're not a little niche. We're doing a lot of this for a lot of different people in a lot of different places. We're doing a lot of advertising, obviously, but we're also helping a lot of different brands get that activation going. Teams, leagues, specific sports, we're all over the place in this.
Right, and talk about, because again, we talk about cloud native, et cetera, I mean, native advertising. We're quite mature into this cloud ecosystem, but I would think that there are some innovative ways that you can spin up clouds for events that really logicalize the spend as much as the actual sponsorship, right?
Well, I mean, it's changing a lot. I mean, if you take a look at what's happening inside the standards committees nowadays, where they're talking about doing server-guided ad insertion, where you don't actually interrupt the flow of play. You've got squeeze-backs and three-quarter views where that play is still going on. They can stick new logos around the edges and inside and not stop the viewer from taking them out of the action. You can have you can have a cloud instance spin up a second stream. So the actual client plays a second stream on top of the first stream. You're not away from the sport. You couldn't do that without the cloud. You couldn't spin up all these instances and all this running stuff without the innovations of both the standards committees, the different technology companies out there spinning all this stuff up, and the cloud infrastructure itself to do this.
It's a bit of a reinvention if you go back to broadcasting and the way we used to do things with, traditional ad breaks. And, and particularly when you look at it with device types as well, because I think that you've got quite a bit of experience on that side too. I mean, are you also looking at how different devices are served?
Every different device has different capabilities, and different clients on them will do different things. Certainly, older devices always struggle, lag behind. That's always going to be the challenge. But the newer devices that consumers are continuing to buy today give them way more capability to do things, and frankly, we can target those far more effectively to do more interesting things. That's really where our partners are asking us to go develop stuff on.
Right, and so Adam, you're in an interesting position because some people in the room probably know what you guys do, but talk about what you do and how you kind of backed into this world of sponsored streaming.
Yes, so Hudl's a sports tech company, so we're not a media-first company, we're a sports tech company. And our first number one persona are coaches and athletes. And we take video and data, we capture the video, we put data on it, we make moments that count for those coaches and athletes to get better for the next game, for the next part of their career. What drives all that are 30,000 AI-driven cameras across the country. We're in every high school across the country, And we do what our athletic directors ask. And they eventually said, can you also not only capture the content for our athletes and coaches, can you capture it and stream it to our fans? So that's how we got into the media business. Our schools asked us to.
And when was that, Adam?
We started live streaming less than 3 years ago. Last year, we streamed over 1 million games. And talking about duration time, that's around 25 minutes.
I think you've earned some McCrispies. Yeah.
And,
Yeah, you do. 1 million, baby.
Yeah, 1 million. 1 million served, and to a very active fan base, right, that want to watch that content.
But so talk about the branded side of this. You're serving sponsored content during the downtime.
We are. So
right? That's the eureka for you.
And for the brand as well. So part of the secret sauce are those cameras, and they're AI driven. And so we've taught those cameras to find moments that count for coaches and athletes. We also taught those cameras how to find dead moments. And when we find those dead moments, like a halftime or a quarter break or a timeout, calls our ad server, and boom, the brand can.
And these are local ads mostly, right? Local sponsors?
Local and mostly national, actually. So, like an example, we had a partnership with T-Mobile, Friday Night Lights, 5G. They wanted to connect with rural and small towns, 6,000 of them across the country. We basically created a rural and small town football sports media platform for them. And they were able to connect to all of those schools that were already on the platform during their live games and highlights of. And part of their initiative was to give back to these schools, give back to athletic departments. And so we raised awareness and then delivered that content back to the schools.
That's great. And how's it going? I mean, what's the response been?
The response is great. We're right in it now. So it's ongoing during the season. It's really cool. Next week, we're going to launch the L-Bar ad unit for T-Mobile, the first of its kind, with our partnership with Dolby and TheoPlayer. And the schools are pumped, as they should be.
Wow. No, I mean, and so word is spreading then of what you guys are doing on this side?
The word is spreading, but again, it's our schools and our teams that are driving this. The athletes, the coaches, and they're the ones that are pushing to the fan base, hey, watch our game. We're on TV now.
Yeah. Dylan, how have you evolved sort of the relationships with various sponsors through what you're doing? And also, what's your take on where FAST is, where embedded, as you said, sort of embedded content is integrated into FAST?
Sure. Well, I should start by noting that JOURNY is part of a larger media company called NextTrip. It's on the NASDAQ, NTRP. So we're traditionally been known as a performance online travel agency and having assets that are low funnel in the travel industry that are designed to put heads in beds. But at the end of the day, you've seen a lot of what you would call commerce to content plays that are starting to pop up in the ecosystem. Obviously, Amazon and is the most long-standing with having tremendous amounts of data about what types of content that people are watching, a huge advertising business, but then the ability to transact for product. But you also saw a food delivery company acquire Tastemade. So for us, it was very much about how do we create a relationship with the consumer during the inspiration and travel trip planning of their consumer journey. As most people, where you go on vacation, it's a big purchase. Tends to be a lot of money. It tends to be something you do a couple times a year, maybe your average twice a year, but some travel enthusiasts maybe do it a few times more. But it's a big purchase and you usually spend a lot of time thinking about it. And you don't want to be surprised when you show up. So the ability to watch content while you're in that dreaming phase, that inspiration phase on a channel that's 100% programming, travel content, not Ghouls and Goblins, which has become the travel channel, or Traveling with Conan O'Brien, which is really a comedy show, not a travel show, which is great. It's an awesome show. But people want to see travel content for that inspiration phase. So one thing we can guarantee advertisers is lower funnel performance on our media that's meant to drive heads and beds, traditional OTA, email, offers, but we can customize those offers based on the things that we know about them when they're consuming our content upstream. So that's a big component about how we're thinking about the entire consumer journey as it pertains to the
right.
traffic.
And I don't know what numbers you can speak to, but I mean the watch time is pretty damn impressive. 29 minutes. That's really, really impressive.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. You know, we're not allowed to get too much into specifics around data, being that we're a publicly traded company. But one thing that I can announce is this morning we put out a press release for our first original that is 100% deficit financed by a partner advertiser, Sea Cloud Cruises. We have Chef Ben from Below Deck as one of our stars. And what I think is really interesting about this is it's playing on a few key components. One is the number one determiner of where you go on a cruise now is the food and beverage service. So Chef Ben and our other celebrity chefs, as they travel to ports of call, will be visiting these different ports, hooking up with local food vendors, farms, experiences that our same consumers on the cruises can also participate in when they go to ports of call, bringing all of those foods and ingredients back to the ship, and then cooking dinner for a group of about 50 of those guests. So at the end of the day, the advertiser is the star. Their personnel and employees come in and out of the show. It's an experience for the guests. The guests actually get to show up in the content itself. So it creates a pretty interesting feedback loop from a branded content perspective.
That's right. And by the way, congratulations on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's quite a milestone. John, you know, talk about the sort of the heroics of what you guys do at Bulldog DM for clients in terms of doing what we used to call participation media, and how these kinds of you know, blocks or segments are integrated, because I think that from a producerial point of view, you guys are doing, you know, huge stuff. I mentioned the Doja Cat thing, but I mean, is this now? I mean, how many of these events do you do a year, and what have you learned over the last couple of years from this?
Clearly, when I think I got into this business, the real question was, for brands, we're struggling with, you know, a couple things here. Cord cutting, ad blocking, and brand safety, combined with how do we connect with this experience economy, these younger consumers who value a shared experience more than, you know, a major significant purchase. So I really built my business around doing just that. And I think the big opportunity in the sector is experiential marketing, right? Brands put a lot of dollars into those experiences, whether they're for 40 people or for you know, a Coachella for 125,000. And the light went off for me at AEG getting Coachella to be live streamed. And that went to an audience, I think recently the measurement was 89.2 million viewers. So we now work with brands who are out there doing these experiences and saying, hey, it's great that you're in front of X amount of people, but why not take that to 20X to 50X and get a watch time of 20, 30, 40 minutes. So we've successfully done that with brands like AT&T. They have these big corporate sponsorships with the NCAA, as well as the NBA and the WNBA. So they own, for instance, the All-Star game, the concert before the All-Star game at the NBA. So we've gone to probably 4 different cities and done shows where we're streaming that experience. We're tethered to an AT&T 5G network to help them tell their 5G story. We build a microsite where the audience can choose their different camera perspective. And we're also shooting some of these external camera feeds on Samsung Galaxy devices. So now that partner has a say in that conversation. So really the opportunity, call it low-hanging fruit, is helping brands amplify what they're doing from an experiential marketing perspective. And that's also where you see media dollars come in, just not sponsor dollars. So someone on the sponsorship team has a colleague down the hall with a media spend. And that has really unlocked, I think, significant growth in the space, and then turning on those tools I talked about earlier, interactivity that really drives, you know, more sustained success for them.
Right. I mean, that level of engagement just keeps going. And of course, you mentioned Coachella. Glastonbury this year, I used a VPN as they usually do. They're not doing it next year. They have to fix the fields, but through the BBC. I mean, it's just incredible, those experiences. But you know, with that branded content, I mean, it's such a great capture. You know, because you can do it just about anywhere. I mean, I find that it's come a long way over the last 20 years when, Telescope was a client of mine years ago, and they were doing the slam dunk contest with live voting in 2008. That's when Dwight Howard wore the Superman cape, for those who remember. And they were nervous as hell. They didn't want to report the numbers, and the numbers were like blowout. It was like more than 1 million people voted. They thought they might get 100,000. So that was 17 years ago. It's come a long way. The same company we're talking about, AT&T.
We just did a project, I think, which is pretty noteworthy of where the industry is headed, and that was with TikTok. And there's an artist, Leve. She's an Icelandic, Chinese, Gen Z jazz singer who is incredibly popular. She's got a tour coming out where she sold out 2 nights at Crypto and 2 nights at Madison Square Garden. I think probably 40 other arenas around the country. And it was a pop-up concert at Grand Park in downtown LA, which not easy to do given connectivity issues, but we brought in supplemental bandwidth. It was an exclusive show on TikTok, but there was a sponsor. So one of our corporate partners is Fiji, who was integrated into the live stream. The noteworthy innovation there was it was also integrated into TikTok Shop. So the artist sold signed vinyl and signed CDs during this about a 45-minute performance, and halfway through that entire inventory was sold out. So that's interesting. I think that e-commerce live streaming is going to become a massive business. TikTok will do $17 billion this year. They've only been in the US for 2 years, and I think $50 billion globally. But I think that's also a massive opportunity for brands who want conversion or call to action. E-commerce live streaming gets about a 30% conversion versus 2 to 3 for normal e-commerce. But the discovery factor as well, where consumers can discover new products, especially direct-to-consumer products. I think that's going to be very powerful.
And talk about the pop-up, because this is interesting. Was this really a pop-up? Was it just announced, within an hour, or how was that done? I'm just curious about the lead up to that.
This artist is so popular that you had to submit to be invited, and the destination was not revealed, I think, until the day before. So,
okay, so that's what I figured.
Yeah, Grand Park is a park. It's like water fountains and grass. And we had to come and set up and put a 5-camera production together that morning, and she came out and performed around sunset. So a true pop-up. There was an experiential company that literally, put borders around, and we ran cable. But yeah, true pop-up.
Are you doing any geofencing in some of these things as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how's that been working?
A lot of it is for music. It's territory-based. So if we do a show and the music artist is only going to offer it in North America, or the record label doesn't have jurisdiction in certain places, that's certainly a business. Or if it's purely an American company that's only wants to stream into North America, the beauty of streaming is that's pretty easy capability to turn on. But it does come up.
Yeah. Adam, let's talk about brand safety with your clientele. I mean, I would think that and how long have you guys been doing what you're doing on the embedded side, on this brand sponsorship side?
Yeah, on the live side for about 3 years. We also have 12 million highlights a year, and a lot of those highlights are created by athletes. And so we've had longer partnerships with like Nike and Gatorade that want to reach that audience. But yeah.
And do they sponsor?
Yeah, and like
Nike.
Nike, we're doing Nike's live right now. Again, they want to reach active athletes in context, and then also during live. Gatorade, we did a really cool one earlier in the year called Fueling Greatness. And so Hudl's been around for almost 20 years, and that means almost every NFL athlete but one he's a punter from Australia, has their highlights on Hudl. A majority of WNBA stars, majority of NBA stars. So Fueling Greatness with Gatorade was Caitlin Clark, Jason Tatum, and Josh Allen. 3 stars, 3 Gatorade stars for 3 different sports. We mashed up their Hudl highlights from when they were in high school with their professional highlights. And it was a really great piece of branded content, and then delivered that back on the Hudl platform to athletes and in the live sporting event. And it's sort of a cool, beautiful circle of not only the content, but also the athletes'
But also
career.
the fact that it's almost a bit of guerrilla marketing, because you're getting in with these different leagues as well.
Absolutely. But and we call folks like Gatorade a locker room brand. And athletes ask for those brands to be part of the Hudl platform because it's aspirational, right? And so you can imagine if you're an athlete, and you know, it could be going to a small college next, but they see their favorite star in Caitlin Clark, and they see her high school highlights and what she was like when she was young. It's aspirational. It's a great place for a brand to participate.
Right, and by the way, when I think of locker room, I think Axe body spray. You should work on that one. That's probably closer to the, you know, just saying.
Good call.
Yeah, but
call.
no, I think that's an interesting way that you in the last couple of years have really backed into what is essentially a massive way to organically integrate, you know, these brands into what you're doing as well.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. And our challenge opportunity is to convince these brands we are spending on the NFL. The NFL, for context, we're not competing with them. They'll have 16 games across the weekend. We'll have close to 5,000 football games on a Friday night. And so it's changing mindsets on you can reach high school youth sports at scale instead of what their mindset made. I have to go to the gymnasium and put a placard there. And like, no, you can reach these communities of passion at scale in cool ways.
Yeah, and Scott, I want to kick off the discussion about AI. And again, by the way, Adam's an ex-Microsoftie too. So he shares that with Scott, and they have the scars to prove it. But Scott, talk about where AI is and what you're doing on this sort of branded side of streaming.
Sure. AI really helps us actually narrow down who we're targeting from the brand point of view. Who do we want to address to make the brand more successful? Everybody's a little concerned about curation of content, going one way about like how do we deliver the content, but now the other way, how do we deliver the brand to the right audience? Understanding who's watching what so the brand gets its information back in the right way, so you know you're delivering the right information at the right time with the right message. So much concern comes out nowadays from people that when we deliver a message, it's the right message at the right time. Everybody's concerned they never run into the point in time when they have the Jack in the Box commercial over top of war scenes. They don't want that sort of thing going on. So make sure that we understand what's on the scene versus what's being delivered in terms of the message. Make sure that doesn't happen. Also, knowing who we're delivering it to in terms of geographies, et cetera. Understanding all parts of the delivery system to make sure that the data matches the message, matches the moment. So that when a goal is scored, the right brand is in the background for their advertising. So it's like, hey, I'm attributed to the success of that club because I'm the sponsor of that club. Make sure my ad is in the right part of the scene. Make sure that when this player is on the pitch or this player is in the scene, I can see them well. And I happen to be the sponsor of that player. My logo shows up in the shoe in the right place. That sort of thing is going on all the time. Enhancing that, maybe not in the live side, but in the highlight side, a little bit easier nowadays. That sort of thing comes up all the time in our conversations.
Right. I mean, the vision mixes, the highlights, the kinds of things that people have been able to do in the cloud for a while now. But I think from a sponsorship side, that really leverages the intentionality of AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like knowing who wants to be seen at that moment and tying that back in with all the different vectors of information that AI can do much faster than a human editor can ever do.
Right, and I want to stay with you for a second to talk about hockey, because I think that ice hockey, from a global perspective, has been in the same way that football, soccer, has been really much more progressive in terms of bringing the different aspects of innovation into the kind of sponsored content here, whether it's avatars beforehand, following the puck, all these kinds of things, and I think that was always there to some extent with ice hockey, even going back to the 70s. A lot of sponsors.
Yeah, they've been fantastic. I mean, if you take, it took a long time for people to really realize how far ahead the NHL was with their changing of the ads on the boards. Some of my friends in Canada were watching. It's like, wait a minute, why are you seeing different ads? Like, I would send a screen capture. Sure, that was legal. I sent them the screen capture of what I was watching, and they go, wait a minute, your ads are different. And they'd send me stuff. And then I've got a nephew in Germany who'd be watching it. He would get different ads. They're not just changing the ads home and away. Their world feed would be different.
Right.
So they're very intentional about how they're doing
But
it.
in the streaming side, I think is interesting. We're working with the NHL on capturing spatialized audio from different arenas, and this was 11 years ago. And I thought that the fact that they were hip to that idea, which I pitched to them, it's like, and this is for their streams. So we're not talking about broadcast. So I find that there are so many new ways to capture different elements of what somebody experiences and what you, the sponsor, can jump into, right?
And how they're painting on the glass now ads. Like, somebody was asking me recently, like, oh, don't those ads bother the people in the stadium when they're on there? I'm watching on TV, it's like, that's not there. That's being painted on in production, right? And then I had to realize they're only doing that on the
Tell them the
side.
Zamboni is not there either.
Right.
The ice just clears itself now.
Yeah, the ice is magic. I am waiting for somebody to realize that the Zamboni is the next target for changing ads on between periods.
Why isn't the Zamboni's a big? Does anyone not know what a Zamboni is? Well, if you don't, go watch an ice hockey game. But yeah.
It's between periods. It's not typically shown. That's why not right now.
Okay, but seriously, man, come on. It's hilarious.
The NHL has always been ahead of the game in this term. Like, they had electronic dasher boards a long time ago that I remember the Penguins did it, the Capitals did it, some others did it. Monumental Sports is doing some incredible things right now with avatars for different things right now, which is really cool. It took football in the UK 20 years to catch up to what the NHL is doing with electronic dasher boards. The NHL is being progressive. They had to be progressive because they're always kind of catching up on the sponsorship side. They're the fourth of the four big sports. So they've got to be aggressive, and they continue to be aggressive with that.
Right. It's really interesting stuff. John, let's come back to you for a second because you mentioned AEG earlier. Do you find that, you're in this position where you're working with massive brands. Are there smaller folks who are working with you? Or, are you and how are you reaching out to clients here? Because you've been around the space for a while.
We work with brands of all sizes, and our focus is on that live experience. And certainly, it's the blue chip Coca-Cola's, AT&T's in the world, but we've also done projects for smaller entities. And I think this is an interesting moment in the live world and in the live industry, in that a couple of years ago, I think Ted Sarandos made this famous quote: "Hey, we're not anti-sports, we're pro-profit." And then went out and did a couple of live streams, and it was the Tom Brady roast and Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock comedy shows. And then within a year, they're licensing the NFL. They put on a Mike Tyson fight. Now it's F1 and WWE. I think this is about to become a renaissance in live content because Netflix is probably one of the most data-driven companies in the history of the world, and they make their decisions on data. And I think they're realizing, I may not have to get subscribers to sign up. I can get people to come to my platform and watch this Mike Tyson fight and advertise all of my shows, which they did throughout that broadcast. But also, the big thing for me was they sold out the ad inventory. And those NFL games also sold out the ad inventory, and ironically, Beyonce outdrew the NFL games.
Oh, completely.
And so I think the minute the ink was dry on the Skydance Paramount deal, they bought the UFC. 3 weeks ago, Bad Bunny set a record in Amazon Music history for streaming the final night of his residency on Amazon Music and Twitch. So I think there's now going to be a result of, and this goes back to your question, brands big and small are now going to have live content that they can power across, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, Apple, you name it. I think it's going to be a very different world for advertisers who are going to get that holy grail, they're going to get that watch time.
It's interesting you bring up Netflix. And by the way, for those who didn't see the session that Andy Beach did yesterday with Brett Axler from Netflix, it was quite excellent. And if you didn't, please catch it on the YouTube channel for streaming media. But it's interesting to me that where Netflix has gone, because they're such a powerhouse, and you mentioned Apple, as opposed to having to rely, for example, on a third-party platform like Meta or YouTube or Snapchat even, a very closed loop kind of thing there. And I find that's sort of reinvigorating, the whole really media and entertainment space in live. And I want to segue into a question which I think is kind of underlines my interest in what all of you are doing in this space, which is design, UX, UI. John, let's start with you. How does that factor into what you guys are doing?
If we're designing a microsite for brands, which we have for, again, AT&T and Coke and even Spotify, we don't believe in surveillance video. I think you could hire Drake, the most followed people on the planet, and the audience will come and they'll check it out, but they're probably not going to stick around if it's just very passive viewing. So, the opportunity maybe to choose your view, but to have a chat, that's curated, that's related to the conversation, where people aren't, spamming. Maybe they're interacting with a poll or other graphics in the experience. That has proven to be the most successful UI implementation. Again, that's where we're getting an audience that transforms from largely passive viewers to collaborative, participatory, engaged.
Right, as a community, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Adam, I would think that you're putting more than a little bit of thought into this, beyond surveillance.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Design and fan experience. What's interesting, and again, those 30,000 AI-driven cameras are producing 1 million auto-produced live events, but the fans don't know that, right?
Right.
And
because the cameras are talking to each other, they're taking over.
They're friends as well, those cameras. But and the quality of our cameras are professional grade, right? And so the fans are also expecting a brand integration to be professional grade, but we have to do that at scale. So we have to keep on innovating around the ad design like the professional sports league do. So rolling out double box, rolling out the watermark. So that's where we have to keep innovating on the design part from the brand side, because fans don't know the difference between auto-produced versus professionally produced.
Right, but that's a good way to reawaken them to that. And Dylan, talk about what you guys are doing on the UX UI side.
On the advertising experience, I think it mainly has to do with some of the things that have already been mentioned. QR codes, squeeze backs, trying not to fully interrupt the viewing experience, but maybe supplement it. But then the other innovation on UX, I think, is the data-driven insights that we have from the booking engine and the transaction. So can we show people experiences and travel partners that are more exciting to them, that they would have a higher propensity to want to engage with or potentially book? And can we use our propensity of data to actually figure out what are the trends that we should be programming to the channel at large? So I think it's data insights on how we power the ad experience and the content itself, but then making the ad units less intrusive and more conducive to a booking experience.
Yeah, and Scott, talk about design from the GlobalLogic side of things.
I'm trying to think what we don't do. In this case, I'll keep it simple. Curating people's content libraries, making sure that they know what they've got, know what to deliver, and having the insights on the customer as well as the brand, what they should deliver, as I talked about earlier on. More specifically in terms of teams and leagues, building applications for professional teams. Right now, there's somebody out there, unfortunately not my team, that we rebuilt their entire application on the handheld for recently. We're all the way through the application system to deliver a fantastic consumer experience so that they can actually get the content they want, and then the brand can actually have that contact back to that consumer. They build that relationship all the way through the food chain. Yeah, and a phrase we haven't heard much, and it's because it probably died out before the pandemic hit us, is second screen. Some of us were heavily involved in that. Is that a thing anymore for anyone up here on the stage? Me personally, no. No. So that's how far we've come, in terms of integration. And particularly in sports, is a big thing, which leads me to my next question. So Cortina Olympics are coming up, and of course we have the FIFA World Cup here in North America. Do you think audiences after the Paris 24 Olympics are more savvy about engaging with live streaming channels, John?
100%. And I also believe that the pandemic caused a global adoption of user behavior of how to use live video, meaning you had grandparents Zooming with their grandchildren or kids doing online learning, and the whole world was tuning in and watching artists performing in their living room or their home studios. And before it was a little bit of a process to say, here's how you click on the link and load the video player, and now that is completely adopted. And with the volume of programming coming out of the last Olympics, I think the consumer now understands I have all kinds of different ways to tune in. I can tune in live, or I know that some of this programming will be time shifted. So again, massive adoption of user behavior, and I think now that there's also, ironically, with all this content in the world, people make the comment, oh, they're not going to tune in live. Ironically, they are, and they want to have this shared experience no matter where they are in the world. So I think I think the Olympics will certainly prove that out even further.
Yeah, it was really a massive and heroic thing that NBC pulled off, and not to the exclusion of other global broadcasters, but kudos to them. Certainly, one thing I want to ask here, and I feel it's a bit of a pink elephant in the room, but it also may just be a massive failure, and that was something called Walmart and Vizio over the past year. That should have been kind of a brilliant way to integrate sponsorship and branded content into streaming. What are your thoughts, anyone, on that? Is that something that just was a bad idea, or maybe a good idea that just wasn't going to fly?
Well, as a fellow content to commerce company, a much smaller one, I think it was definitely an interesting acquisition. To have the hardware device that a good percentage of the public is viewing content, and being one of the world's largest retailers and having a huge e-commerce business can't be a bad thing for them. I think Walmart is just traditionally hard to integrate, and when they bring in outside acquisitions, it takes time. So I wouldn't count them out on that just yet, but I think on the long term, it'll probably be a great business model.
Yeah, it's interesting because, of course, having the glass means even more in the CTV world, I think, and I'm curious, John, what you think of that from the standpoint. I mean, you work with some of these sponsors who are on the glass side.
I think Walmart was in parallel super smart about e-commerce live streaming, and they delved into it and really ran with it. And perhaps, maybe they realized that I don't have to necessarily have my content on Vizio to conduct a transaction. I can have it live anywhere, or have it live on bespoke sites that we design. And probably got ahead of the curve and thought, geez, this is how younger people are going to buy product. And I've even seen recently that I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk. His prediction is that retail is going to be so challenging going forward that all the costs and the rent, et cetera, that retailers are going to convert to live content studios Monday through Friday, and then go back to traditional retail.
And it's, to me, that's a good prediction. I was just going to say that we worked in the previous decade with one of our Swedish clients was Bambuser, who had a great streaming video platform, and even for many, many years. As the pandemic hit, they had a new CEO come in and basically changed them to being a showrooming platform. So exactly what you described. So it's a really interesting pivot, and I think that, we can look around their major cities, including New York, where I'm based, and see some, space that could easily turn into that kind of pop-up studio. So I think there'll be a lot more gear being sold in coming years for just these kinds of things. We have time for maybe one question. I usually don't take those. So somebody else? Yes, you've been making a lot of noise. So we'll give you a mic. Wait for it, because this is being recorded. And very affirmative noise, I might say. Thank you for that. So Steve Nathans-Kelly is coming with a mic. Oh. There you go.
So you're talking to me. Okay.
Yes, we're talking to you. There you go.
Hi. Thank you all for the panel. It was very informative and really great. I work in sports interactive fan engagement platforms, and I build and I work with the Olympics, World Cup, Pan American Games, all the major sport world-class events. And what they look for in sponsorships is the fan engagement feedback from the product brand, so they can make sure that they get the right demographics and target audience, yes? My question to all of you is, when the FAST channels are launching right now, and all of the OTT platforms, and they're competing with each other for all the different brands, for the different types of industries, what is the one bit of advice that you would give that could separate the brands from really targeting, like whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's Chrysler, whatever industry it's in, what do you think that the brands really look for besides huge audiences and not so much their name recognized, but they want feedback from the fans?
Yeah, I could speak to that a little bit. So, the reality is we all know that most fast inventory is available programmatically. So you don't have to buy a channel or a show. You can buy the audience across the entire ecosystem if you're willing to bid for the right amount for the right consumer. So you better bring something to the table that is above and beyond what they can just get through a programmatic ad buy and find their audience on your platform for that one moment that they need to monetize one ad impression. For us, that's about figuring out who our endemic partners are, airlines, hotels, cruise ships, adding tremendous value by integrating them into the content itself, and then most importantly, giving them lots and lots of content to use for their own purposes after the fact. So almost making that integration a campaignable moment. So my advice would be figure out who your endemic partners would be, who can't live without you and want to be storytelling partners with you versus just advertisers to your audience.
One of the
go ahead, Scott. What were you going to say?
One of the platforms they really like is our interactive avatar. So our avatar interacts with the actual brands and interacts with actual fans, and the fans become the avatar. So it's like, action face, when you can scan your body like Adam Sandler from the NBA did, at the Jazz 2 years ago demo. But they really put the fan into living their dream, which is their favorite player, and then also sampling and testing their favorite product.
Yeah, that's excellent point. The other thing I would say, and this comes a little bit from my longevity in the industry, is also, does the lifestyle of the brand match the message of the content? I worked for the last decade. I've worked with a lot of sports leagues. A lot of them have fast channels or 24/7 channels. I'm not so much worried about whether they're streaming fast channels. Those things aren't necessarily there to generate revenue in terms of advertisement. So if you look at the ads on them, they're not always the greatest ads. They're a marketing vehicle. They're there to talk about their product to the world. I'm starting to see a movement where some of the brands that are their sponsors are showing up there at certain times of day, and it's more aligned with the lifestyle of the brand and the demographic in that region. Expect to see a little bit more of that as well.
Yep, thank you for that. And that's going to wrap it from here. Please give it up for Scott Davis from GlobalLogic, Dylan Conroy, JOURNY TV, Adam Gouttierre from Hudl, and last but not least, John Petrocelli from Bulldog DM. I'm Chris Pfaff from Chris Pfaff Tech Media LLC. Thank you to Steve Nathans Kelly, the whole Streaming Media team. Thank you for being here. Remember, Streaming Media Connect December 9th through the 11th, and check out the Streaming Media YouTube site very soon to see all these sessions. Thanks again.